I am a 26-year-old woman. This week I'm getting married. With only 5 days left before the wedding, I'm already enmeshed in a lot of drama. And my dad and sister deserve all the credit for that. For context, that's excellent. Since my mother passed away at the age of 16 after a protracted struggle with the big C, my dad has been raising me as a single parent for the past 10 years. We were having a terrible time, but I was having a harder time since I recognized at the time that my sister would be able to rule over me whenever she wanted to, and that no one was supporting me anymore. My dad had a special place in his heart for my sister, and even after my mom passed away, she would get away with anything she did. My mother has always treated us equally. For me, though, it was not that simple. 2 years older than I am, my sister Katie is the most obnoxious and entitled person I know by a tenfold margin. When I was younger, Mom would actually treat me like her personal servant, and every time I objected, my dad would beg me to fulfill her requests because, presumably, she was too weak to take care of herself. That was merely a performance. Although I was aware of it, my father took her word for it, and it was always beneficial that she had experienced childhood illness. But she outgrew that as she grew older. She would, however, continue to act as though she was always catching colds or suffering from other common ailments in order to avoid having to perform her responsibilities and force me to take care of everything around the house. After that, she would do nothing except lounge around in her room. My dad would always be too exhausted after returning home from work, so if I didn't do it, nobody else would, and I didn't want to disturb him anyhow. I used to find it really bothersome. Things started to improve for me after I turned 18 and went out for college, since I was no longer required to live with her. Since I didn't like her and we didn't really get along, we didn't stay in touch after college. She was not only exceedingly unpleasant to be around, but she also made me do all the labor. She would be generally irritating and would continually try to get under my skin by taking pot shots at me. I was therefore relieved to be leaving the house. I certainly miss my dad, but I also decided not to give up my sanity in order to live with my family. And even though my dad was obviously inclined towards my sister, I used to get along with him. I know that a lot of people may think that's strange. I can't help it though. Up until recently, our relationship was pleasant and had been for a while. It wasn't as though I served as his doormat. We had our fair share of arguments over the years due to his bigotry toward Katie. But I would always object and defend my rights when he became too much to handle. I would eventually make up with him because at the end of the day, he was still my father. After dating for almost 8 years, my fiancé and I decided to tie the knot this year. We first met in college. We both felt that it was the perfect moment, and we are in relatively excellent places in our jobs. However, as Katie has been struggling lately and has returned to reside with my dad, I am unable to say the same for my sister. She had been living alone for a few years after graduating, but last year, she made the decision to leave her job and work with her friend in the jewelry industry. Regretfully, it wasn't precisely successful. They had done no research at all, nor would they have prepared themselves sufficiently, so they just dove right in. Thus, it was certain to fail from the start. They not only lost all of the investment money, which they had primarily acquired from friends and family, but they also failed to make any meaningful profits from the company. She had already resigned her work and had to close her business after it failed. She hasn't had a job since then. She hasn't even bothered to start looking for another work in the nearly 6 months that have passed. She is therefore entirely dependent on my dad. He had intended to retire in a few years, but because he is now providing for her, I don't think it is still possible. I think he should tell her to obtain a job, because she can't only rely on her old dad and mope around for the rest of her life because of one failed business attempt. This is just one of the topics that we used to quarrel about. She must leave that place and take action for her own life. However, my dad thinks that before she commits to anything else, she just needs some time to process everything and cope with her emotions. We try not to discuss this matter because we hold extremely different opinions, and it will just spark arguments. In addition, my dad believes that part of the reason she's furious is that I got engaged a few weeks after she had to cease operations. Since her younger sister is thriving in life, she often finds it difficult to motivate herself to get out of bed. She makes sure to post about me on social media, acting as though everything bad is happening to her for attention. And every time someone comments on one of her posts, I can be positive that she is jealous of me at the moment. That sounds a lot like a call for assistance. She talks about how amazing I am doing and how she should get all of this rather than me. However, it seems that I succeeded because I'm prepared to use coercion and trample others in order to advance. She is where she is because she likes to play the victim, even though she is the one who is accountable for all the horrible things that have been occurring to her. I, on the other hand, certainly don't do that. And I am where I am due of my hard work and efforts. Alright, so her cat died almost 15 years ago, possibly 3 weeks ago. She was really connected to that cat, to whom she had been caring for a very long time. She was obviously devastated when that occurred, and my dad informed me that I began to feel sorry for her since things had gotten so awful. I will not be dishonest. I wanted to be there for her, offer my condolences, but I also didn't want to come across as phony. I just instructed my dad to deliver my message. Either way, she was feeling a little down already. After her cat died, she went days without eating at all. To try to survive, my dad would have to physically beg her to get out of bed. I felt terrible for them both because it was so pitiful. But with only a few weeks left until the big day, I was incredibly busy getting ready for the wedding, so I chose to stay out of the fray as much as possible. I stayed in contact with my dad and tried to console him whenever he got too worked up over Katie's behavior, but that was about all I could do. In any case, I didn't believe this would cause me any problems, but my dad got in touch with me a few days ago to let me know that he wouldn't be able to accompany me down the aisle on my wedding day. I had contacted him to formally ask him to lead me down the aisle, even though it was evident that I had thought it would be him. I had assumed he would accept it right away the day before that phone call, but he gave me a skeptical look when he said he wanted some time to consider it. The following day, he called me to say no, and he gave me the most amazing explanation when I asked him why, as it was evident that I was confused. He informed me that Katie had recently cremated her cat, and that she now desired to travel to Hawaii and scatter his ashes on the shore because, a few years prior, she had taken her cat along on a road trip to Hawaii with several of her friends. Evidently, she held many pleasant recollections of that location, and it held great significance for her. And her cat had died exactly 1 month before, to the day of my wedding. She thus desired to disperse the ashes during my wedding. My dad informed me that he would not be able to attend my wedding in addition to declining to walk me down the aisle. For the first time in weeks, Katie had expressed a desire to do something and leave the house, so he stated he was very sorry and wanted to make it up to me later. However, he would have to go with Katie. She also asked my dad to go with her because she wanted someone to be there to support her emotionally. While I was furious when he stated that, I made an effort to remain composed and suggested to my father that she could bring a friend with her, or that she could do it the day following my wedding, just to make sure he could attend. My dad stated that she was rather forceful about what she had said, and he made the same requests since he wanted to be able to attend my wedding as well. I had wanted at least one parent to be present at my wedding. However, she became extremely irate and began accusing him of being indifferent to her sentiments when he attempted to make any more suggestions. She claims that while I would have had a large support system on my wedding day, she just had my father, and she believes that since she is currently going through a very trying time in her life, she should come first. My dad expressed his belief that, considering her circumstances, she ought to be the top priority at this time. I went utterly crazy and told him that since she has always been first in his life, I shouldn't be shocked that he is leaving me on my wedding day so that he can spend time with her. I hung up on him right away and blocked him everywhere, not even giving him another chance to say anything. When I informed Andy about it, I was furious. He appeared to be cognizant of my perspective. For the next 2 days, I sobbed a lot. But after that, I made the decision to avenge my father by doing something I knew would enrage him. Since I was aware that my sister was trying to irritate me and play mind games with me, it would have been appropriate for me to do something that I knew would enrage them. I made the decision to ask my uncle to lead me down the aisle rather than grieve about it. My dad's identical brother is my uncle, and they are utterly devoted to one another. Since I was a young child, I have known that, and I have personally witnessed how vicious they can get when they are around one another. They would always strive to outdo one another when they were together for family get-togethers and other social gatherings, which made it uncomfortable for everyone else in the vicinity. My grandparents made a lot of attempts to stop them, but they were just so bitter about one another. It was quite hard to keep them under control. They eventually outgrew it, And my dad stopped going to any events knowing my uncle would be there when my mom died. I had nothing personal against my uncle, and I could truly relate to him because I had experienced what it was like to despise your sibling. However, our connection was not especially intimate either. Nevertheless, I was so furious with my dad after that talk that I made the deliberate decision to get in touch with my uncle and ask him to accompany me down the aisle. When I did that, he seemed a little taken aback and stated he wasn't sure what to respond because he didn't think we were close enough. However, I informed him that the purpose of this was to enrage my dad for what he had done. That was the last time I needed to persuade someone. When he heard that this would annoy my dad, he was pretty much on board. Even though they were in their 50s, my uncle actually burst out laughing when I asked if he wanted to be a part of this. He admitted to me that he would still never turn down the chance to make his sibling look bad. I agree wholeheartedly. In any case, we decided to post about it and assured my father that he would see it. I wrote on social media that very evening about how appreciative I was to my uncle for volunteering to lead me down the aisle, and it wasn't even hours before my father called me. I unblocked him just for that reason, and the moment he contacted me, he expressed his annoyance that I was considering speaking to my uncle and that he was going to replace him with that guy of all people. It would be extremely awkward and disrespectful for him to have my uncle accompany me down the aisle while he was still alive, but he assured me he would get Katie to postpone the dispersal of the ashes. All I had to do was agree to let him walk me down the aisle. He got very agitated and said that I was being immature and petty, and I agreed. I told him he had a chance, and he blew it over Katie. Now I was giving him a taste of his own medicine. I know I'm being immature and petty, but that appeared to aggravate him even more. By the time the call ended, he was crying and mentioned that he had never anticipated my acting in this way, simply because he was attempting to support my sad sister, who was going through far more than I was at the time. He said that because my sister had lost everything, I lacked empathy and was being purely cruel for not even allowing her to spend a day with my dad. He was correct that my sister had lost everything. Therefore, I now feel that what I did was a little insensitive. Therefore, I need your advice on whether or not I should apologize to my dad. Thus, I did as well. When my dad said no, I requested my uncle to walk me down the aisle because my sister wanted him to go to Hawaii with her on our wedding day. 2 days remain until the wedding. Furthermore, what do you know? All by myself, I'm just going to stroll down the aisle, rather than causing myself all this trouble. Since I've come to terms with the fact that I'll be on my own in the end, I believe it would be more suitable for me to simply down the aisle alone. I talked to my uncle, and since my dad gave us the response we were hoping for, he declared that it was okay. Now, like he was meant to be earlier, he will simply be a visitor. Since he had first expressed doubts about walking me down, he didn't mind in any case. I conversed with my father as well, but I refrained from calling him, since it would have resulted in yet another contentious exchange. I told him in my message that he didn't have to lead me down the aisle, but he was welcome to come to the wedding if that was his desire. I also informed him that he was free to travel to Hawaii with Katie if he chose not to attend the wedding. However, I was sorry to inform him that I would have to break up with him for the rest of my life, because he had plenty of opportunities to show me that he would prioritize me if the need arose, but he had consistently failed to do so. I simply don't want to put up with this rudeness any longer. I want to be married, and I want that marriage to bring me happiness. It's been an enormous waste of time, and I've already fretted enough about what he's going to think and how other people will react to my choices. Since he has never bothered to consider my feelings in the event that he had concerns about certain things, with only a few days left before my wedding, he never would have revealed the truth to me, and if he had cared, he would have shown regret to me when I wrote him that message. He hasn't even attempted to respond to me though. I've discussed this with Andy as well, and he believes that this is a wise decision. With only a few days left until the wedding, we still haven't been able to resolve our differences with my father. I don't even think I have any other options at this time. Second update. Hey, let's get started. Yesterday, I tied the knot. I'm still in shock about this. I have the wedding band on my finger in addition to the engagement ring because I am now legally married. I'm really thrilled right now, and it feels unreal. I hate having to think about my sister and dad, but I really should give you guys an update, and a thorough one at that. Given that in the previous one, I kind of just ranted and left. Regretfully, or perhaps happily, my father was unable to make the wedding. Yes, as far as I'm aware, he chose to accompany her to Hawaii to witness the scattering of my sister's deceased cat's ashes, which is a reasonable decision to make in lieu of your other daughter's wedding. I don't even want to get into that though, because some people really hated me for not appearing like I was concerned about my sister's melancholy. Look, I will stick by my statement because I genuinely feel awful for her. I wouldn't even wish depression upon my biggest enemy, who, strangely, is Katie, because it is a horrible thing. Regardless, she wasn't motivated to do this by depression. She had an intense and debilitating drive to be the focus of attention and to rebel against me. She decided to scatter her cat's ashes in Hawaii as a result of that. On the day I was meant to tie the knot, it would have been better for her to wait a few days before acting in that way. Perhaps she might have completed that sooner, but on the day of my wedding, she had to do it. She has always held a grudge against me, so I don't think this is a coincidence and that she is just acting depressedly because of that. In any case, sadness is not a justification, it is merely an explanation. Yes, I'm not making fun of her, but I'm also not going to give up on her just because she's reaching out to my dad for help. That's a whole different story. He has let me down for the nth time, and I'm not even sure what to say about him. I'm not going to forgive him this time either. It will be challenging to navigate life without any parental guidance at all. Let's be honest though. In any case, he has never been on my side. I can see it clearly now. Life has always been about Katie for him. I was naive to think that anything could ever turn around. He was very shrewd in his decision to miss my wedding. I didn't find out till after the ceremony from him. I was therefore still unsure as to whether he would attend or not up until that point. Given that I had previously sent him a message, he did not respond. All I did was keep checking my phone, but when I discovered that he wouldn't be there after I had walked down the aisle and everything was finished, he opted to text me to let me know that he was in Hawaii with Katie and that he had chosen to attend the ash scattering because Katie needed him more than I did. He apologized and said he hoped I would understand, but she was more emotionally reliant on him. Even if he hadn't mentioned that my stupid and petty actions with my uncle and other things had severely annoyed him before, I still would have found that message to be significant. And he believed that it would be best if we continued to be separated for the time being. And for that reason alone, he was not going. I won't argue that it was trivial, but to be quite honest, my primary motivation was the constant feeling of being forgotten that followed my mother's death. Furthermore, I won't even try to act like what I did wasn't immature. What more could I have done, though? I wanted to know that he genuinely cared, so I just wanted to do something to annoy him. And perhaps he did, but obviously not enough to come see me anyhow. It was the day of my wedding, and the message greatly irritated me. I thus desired to be content. I decided to simply block him and carry on with my day. It was also quite nice of him to send me a message informing me that he was not attending the wedding because he had previously decided not to go. Redondo. When others inquired about them and my sister and father's absence from the wedding, I told them the truth in an open and sincere manner. I reasoned that I had nothing to hide because this only spoke negatively of them and not of me. For the most part, folks were just mute. Some, on the other hand, thought that was pretty sad as well as humorous. All right. So I think everyone in the family is aware that my dad missed my wedding in order to travel to Hawaii with Katie and scatter her cat's ashes. His greatest shortcoming as a father is that he was unable to dedicate even a single day for me. I believe, but nothing can take away from the fact that I still had a good time. The happiest day of my life to date will still be my wedding day. I've decided that the man I love the most will be my only family going forward, because I know I get to spend the rest of my life with him. Update 3. Hey, so I got married a week ago, saying that still feels fantastic. Nevertheless, Andy and I are set to embark on our honeymoon in a few days, but it seems that my dad and Katie find it unbearable to witness my happiness. They therefore concluded that now would be the ideal opportunity to confront me about what I'd been saying to guests at the wedding to explain why they couldn't make it. I got a text from Katie 3 days ago. She wasn't blocked by me. My father was just blocked by me. However, after reading her text, I also wanted to block her because it irritated me that she thought she was in a better moral position. For the record, the only reason I haven't blocked her yet is that I want to be able to find out if something were to happen to my father. Despite our differences, I am certain that she will still notify me in the event of an accident, illness, or any other circumstance. That being said, that is the only reason I have allowed her to continue having access to me. I am aware that the majority of people would tell me to break off all contact, but I don't think I can pull that off because my dad hasn't always been a good parent to me. That doesn't mean I have to be a bad daughter to him either. Many people may not understand this, but these are my morals, and I want to uphold them. Therefore, I would prefer it if people refrained from commenting. Now, getting back to the message she had given me, she wrote, "Hey, we just got back from Hawaii, and a lot of our relatives have already gotten in touch with us, saying that we made the wrong decision to scatter my cat's ashes on the day of your wedding. It doesn't surprise me that you decided to share this tale with everyone and give us a bad reputation. However, I am dissatisfied that despite your knowledge of my extremely trying circumstances, you continue to criticize me. You should know that losing a loved one is really tough, especially because you are family. I truly wish that you hadn't made such negative remarks about my dad and me. I sincerely hope you would have shown me more understanding. However, that is obviously untrue. He's furious since he has also realized that you have blocked him. I believe you ought to reverse that. To be quite honest, all I can say is that you ought to show us a bit more consideration. You can't just live your life thinking about yourself and hope that other people would accept it. I apologize, and I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Additionally, I won't be shocked if you don't, because there's not much I can expect from you if you're still choosing to be mean to me right now." The message's tone itself truly irritated me. Next comes the content. I might wind up cussing her out here if I post anything about it, so I'm not even sure what to say. I really wanted to just block her because it was so haughty and sanctimonious. However, after giving it some thought, I made up my own response and emailed it back to her. "Hello, Katie. I did explain to our family members why your father and I were not at the wedding. Since I don't lie, I made the decision to be truthful about it. Furthermore, you essentially put yourself in that situation by choosing not to attend my wedding. Furthermore, considering the current situation, I believe it is incredibly unjust to expect me to cover for you two when you have only been cruel to me. On my wedding day, you guys couldn't even try to prioritize me for a single day. Therefore, I don't think I need to apologize for anything. If he is offended that I blocked him, he ought to have considered his options before acting, rather than realizing his mistake now. I already have my decision decided. I would really appreciate it if you didn't get in touch with me after this, since I don't want to talk to either of you. Unless an emergency arises, then feel free to phone or text me. But I sincerely hope that you won't get in touch with me at all, unless there's an emergency. I don't want to talk to you or your father. I agree with Dad. Both of you have caused me a great deal of pain in the last few years. For the time being, it would be best if we took some time apart. Now that I'm married, I want to attempt to enjoy the next few years of my life with my spouse. He is the only family I have right now. I want the best for you two in life. I'm going to miss you." I sent that message after showing it to Andy, and she responded to it within a few minutes. She promised to honor my requests and mentioned that my dad was still very upset over my choice to keep my distance from them. However, I couldn't help but feel bad for them for bringing this on themselves. I'm sure Katie is relieved that she won't have to talk to me, but if she is truly upset, that's unfortunate because, as I mentioned earlier, this is entirely his fault. I'm simply going to try to enjoy my honeymoon for now, though. After spending so much effort organizing things, I finally get to enjoy myself.